Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today on For the Sake of the Argument. I interviewed William Lawrence, who's running for Michigan's 7th Congressional District. And he had a lot of interesting things to say, and I think a lot of them are going to resonate with you. We all worry about housing, affordability of insurance, food, all the things that are basic needs and desires of a popular and thriving country that we're seeming to do without. So if you want to see more of these things, I would love for you to do so. I'm on all social media platforms. Check me out everywhere. I mean it. Check me out everywhere. And thanks to all the people that watch me. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm glad you're listening. Talk to you soon. Welcome to For the Sake of the Argument, William Lawrence. You're running to unseat Tom Barrett in Michigan's 7th Congressional District. So I want to kind of give a little background to that because we all don't know what all these districts are or their provenance. But the 7th Congressional District is the seat that Alyssa Slotkin held, that she left to run for Senate, U.S. Senate. And then Curtis Hertel ran for that seat and lost. So we ended up with Tom Barrett.
That's correct.
Why do you think Tom Barrett should be kicked out of Congress?
He doesn't represent us. He hasn't done a town hall. He doesn't have any accomplishments to his name. And he doesn't show up. He doesn't serve the people. And that's the number one reason why. He's been nothing but a rubber stamp for the Trump agenda. He voted for the big, beautiful bill. He said he was going to work to release the Epstein files, and then he's refused to actually sign the discharge position. Bottom line, he's ducking and covering. He's not showing up, and he doesn't represent us.
So do you think those are some of his biggest failures, or are there others? The failure to follow through and making the Epstein files public, or his support of the big, beautiful bill? Any other things he's doing that might make our stomachs turn?
Well, he voted to kick up to 500,000 Michiganders off of their health care through the big, ugly bill.
Did you say 500,000?
500. We don't know what the final numbers are going to be, but it could be upwards of 500,000 Michiganders on Medicare. And he voted for that bill. Of course, he's been complicit in people losing their SNAP assistance during this government shutdown. Actually, just last week, I held a 30-hour food drive outside of his office because he wouldn't lift a finger to help hungry families. He showed that he would rather take food away from the hungry than provide care to the sick, which is what's at stake in this shutdown, which is still ongoing.
I want to talk about that a little bit more, but why do you think Tom Barrett, who won his election, is refusing to do town halls? I don't understand. He was elected. He's got constituents that support him. Why isn't he doing town halls?
He knows he can't answer for his record. He rode to victory on Trump's coattails, and now Trump's second administration has been an utter disaster and is very unpopular. And Barrett doesn't want to have to answer for it.
You mentioned about a 30-hour food drive outside of Tom Barrett's office. I want to dig into that a little bit. During this time when you were conducting the food drive, and I want to find out how much you collected, over 30 hours, Tom Barrett made a police report that his office was vandalized. You were there. You observed. Tell us about that.
So we showed up at 6 p.m. on Thursday, and we held our food drive over the following 30 hours outside of Tom Barrett's office to collect food for families losing their SNAP benefits because he refused to cut a deal to protect our health care, reopen the government, and maintain the SNAP benefits. And while we were there, the police started coming around and asking some questions and taking some pictures. Turns out Tom Barrett's office had called the police because prior to us being there, some other demonstrators had come to protest the fact that people are losing their health care and losing their food stamps. And they left chalk drawings outside his office on the sidewalk and some of them on the surface of the building themselves. They said threatening statements like, "Don't starve kids, Tom," and "Help us afford to live." And I was standing there and the police were taking pictures and I said, "Pretty serious matter here, huh, Lieutenant?" And the lieutenant said, "No, I'm just doing my job. They called in a report. We're taking pictures." And then Barrett released a statement on social media saying that there had been harassment and vandalism that had taken place. And he got utterly utterly clowned on social media. It was not a good look. Even people who were Republicans or voters from it said, Tom, this seems a little excessive. This is chalk, Tom. Someone said, if chalk is the implement of the crime, how do you outline the crime scene?
I know. Yeah, chalk is so very permanent, isn't it? Holy cow. And they call us snowflakes.
Exactly. It just shows where his priorities are. At the time when we were there collecting food for hungry families and the government is on the brink of cutting off 42 million Americans from food that they need, he's playing games and trying to score political points by calling in this report, wasting public resources, and it really blew up in his face.
So aside from Tom Barrett's many failures, what do you see as the biggest issues facing constituents in Michigan's 7th Congressional District?
What I hear is that the American dream is dead. People don't have a future to look forward to. And it comes back to the cost of living now and the utter uncertainty about whether we'll be able to afford to live at all in the future. We can't count on our health care because your health care depends on your employment, if you're so lucky, and the cost goes up every year. And if you lose your job, you also lose your health care. We can't count on good housing because the rent goes up every year, and getting a mortgage has become inaccessible for way too many. If you have kids, you don't know if you're going to be able to afford to put your kids in daycare or what the cost of their education is going to be. And if you're aging, you don't know if you're going to be able to collect on Social Security, which was a promise that was made 90 years ago. And now Donald Trump and Tom Barrett are trying to break that promise. So that's what I hear. People don't have a future to look forward to. And that's why everyone is very anxious. And it also causes people to fight against each other for the diminishing pie that is available for the working class in this country. The fact of the matter is that there are billionaires in San Francisco and New York who are eating the whole pie and are leaving the rest of us to fight over the crumbs, while they divide us with social media algorithms. And they want us fighting against each other. And Trump is a master at this. Every vector of division in society he exploits, whether it's race, religion, where you were born, gender, even partisanship, Democrats versus Republicans. They want us fighting against each other along all of those lines. Because if we're doing that, we're not fighting against the billionaires who are the ones who are hoarding the wealth that we all need to live a dignified life in the 21st century.
As of today's recording, the government is still shut down over health care tax credits. If you're elected, what kind of health care system would you fight for?
I support Medicare for all.
Unequivocally.
Unequivocally. And the reason why is that it's cheaper. It will deliver a higher quality of care. It will empower people to know that they are covered for life. And they can start a business. They can go back to school. They can pursue their passions in life and take risks without wondering if their basic care is going to be covered.
I wonder if you think we'll ever see that, if that can ever become something that is a thing.
I do, because the status quo is only getting worse and worse. And we'll see what happens in the endgame of this fight over the government shutdown. I do believe that it is worth holding the line all the way to protect the Affordable Care Act from the ridiculous cost cliff that is going to be biting in January if we don't make a deal to save it. But regardless of what happens with that, it's clear that affordable care is a fiction in this country. And people are not going to stand for it. I'm an organizer, so what I know is that throughout history, when people do not get what they are owed, they organize, they unite, we rise up, and we demand it. And it's not a matter of whether it is technically possible. We know that every other rich country in the world has a more advanced healthcare system with higher quality and more affordable care than we do.
Ain't that the truth?
It's just a matter of the political will to get it done.
On your website, the first item in your platform is make housing affordable. So you mentioned a few things. The mixed income housing model in Montgomery, Maryland. What is that? And how would something like that help Michiganders achieve housing becoming more affordable, which I am in full support of?
What they've done in Montgomery County is pioneer a new generation of public housing for the 21st century. Some people call it social housing. And unlike the public housing in the 20th century, which was exclusively for the poorest of the poor, and was built to fail, by the way, because it was never adequately resourced to be able to keep those buildings in dignified and safe condition. The public housing of the 21st century is built for anybody who wants to rent a home, whether you're poor, working class, middle class, or upper middle class. Everyone should have the option to rent a public rental unit. This is the kind of vision that they're moving towards in Montgomery County. When you build to a standard that even a professional class person would want to live in, then you build to a higher quality. And what they've done is they've been able to use a revolving public loan fund to lower the cost of capital. So they're cutting Wall Street out of these deals, which is one of the major things that's driving our costs way up, is that the cost of lending has just gotten out of control, especially since the pandemic. So they've lowered the cost of capital, and then they also have created a more feasible ongoing maintenance model than our existing public housing by using a mixed income model where there's a certain percentage of market rate rents and a certain percentage of subsidized rents in each unit. And people are living in mixed income, multiracial, integrated communities that are also strengthening neighborhoods. And they're building around public transit and all these other kinds of co-benefits that are building stronger communities. So this is something that has to be implemented differently in different communities based on the local market conditions. And we could wonk out about all the housing finance and policy, but they've done an amazing job. They've got over 10,000 units under management in Montgomery County in the public sector. And they're pioneering a model that is now getting a lot of interest in other places around the country.
You also talk about a federal tenants bill of rights. What is that, and how would it address problems renters are facing today?
So this is something we've been fighting for here in Michigan for several years through the Rent is Too Damn High coalition, which I worked to start. And at the federal level, we're fighting for many of the same rights, including the right to legal representation in eviction hearings. We consider that to be a fundamental right when you're in criminal court, that you get a court-appointed attorney.
Right.
We don't get that in eviction court. So you've got single parents on the worst day of their life who are at risk of becoming homeless with their families who are completely unrepresented. And they have some lawyer with, alligator skin shoes representing the other side. It leads to utter abuses when the corporate landlords know that the tenants have no representation. So that's a critical right we need. We need the right to renew your lease. If you've been a tenant in good standing, you could do everything right. And yet when your 12-month lease expires, your landlord says, sorry, not interested in renting to you again. And when that's the case, it's impossible to make a house a home because, again, you can't look forward to the future and put down roots in that building, in that neighborhood. And instead you have people who just end up having to move around endlessly, and that's no way to live. Additionally, we need to do things like expunging eviction records because right now, even if you're not found personally liable in an eviction case, if you're basically found innocent, that record still carries with you. And a landlord can use that to deny you a new lease even 5 years in the future. So a claim which was never true in the first place can be carried against you for 5 years afterwards. And this is another huge barrier for people who are in need of housing. So these are some of the rights. There are other tenants' rights that would be included in that package as well.
Yeah, and you had mentioned something on your site about Mid-Michigan Tenant Resource Center. This is a place people can go and find out what their rights are when they're renting?
Yes, that's exactly right. I was a founding board member of the Mid-Michigan Tenant Resource Center, which helps people who are at the risk of falling through the cracks when either their landlords are taking advantage of them or the system is failing them.
Is that a brick and mortar building? Do they reach out via phone call or online, or can they go in person?
Yes, we've got an office space in South Lansing, and you can go to trcmm.org and get connected to us there.
All right, thank you for that. That's a great resource. The field of Democrats running against Tom Barrett is pretty full. Mm-hmm. Yourself and I think right now a couple others. What makes you the best choice compared to your primary opponents?
I was raised in the district. I moved home after college to make my permanent home here. I'll actually show you, Lori. I put this tattoo on my hand when I was living in Philadelphia when I was in college, right here over the Lansing area, because this was my reminder to myself where home was, and I had to get back there. And I moved back. I made it happen 6 years after that. I was raised here. I'll be here. I'm going to be here. I'm always going to be true to this district. And people know my track record of service to the community and speaking truth to power. I'm also someone who is able to build bridges. I'm a coalition builder by temperament, so that's across all sectors of our community and between the streets of protest and the halls of government. I'm the person who is able to make things happen across those different boundaries. And we know that it's going to take everybody to stand up to Trump and to turn the tide so we can have a future to look forward to.
Speaking of boundaries, Democrats are kind of in the middle right now of an inter-party battle between progressives and moderates. Where do you fall in this conflict, and where do you see the party going or moving forward in the future?
I see it as a conflict between change and the status quo, and I'm a candidate for change. I'd say that if there's a silver lining about this year, 2025 and 26, as opposed to 2017 and 2018, it's that fewer Democrats have any illusion that we can go back to the status quo before Trump was elected. Back in 2018, I think a lot of people felt like, boy, this is crazy. We just need to go back to 2015. And now people have realized, actually, that American dream was dying even before 2016. That's why Trump got elected in the first place. He said, we need to make America great again because it is declining. He said, I'll fix it, and that's what people wanted to hear. So we have to have our own plan to fix it by moving forward, not backwards. That's why I'm a candidate for change, and that's what I hear the voters looking for in this election.
Are you doing anything different in your campaign? Are you being an outside-of-the-box campaigner, candidate? Anything that you can share with us that you're doing that maybe your Democratic counterparts aren't doing or Tom Barrett isn't doing? But we know Tom Barrett's probably not doing much if he's not even having town halls.
He's not doing much of anything, I'll tell you that. But the conventional wisdom is that the way to beat him, the way to win a congressional election in general, and this is what the DC consultants say, do not talk to the voters.
Wait a minute. What did you just say?
The DC consultants say, do not talk to the voters. That's how to win a congressional election. Because voters are like goldfish. They have short-term memories. And whatever you say to them now, they'll forget. All that matters is how many ads you can show them and how many mailers you can send them in the last 4 weeks before the election. And so if you're talking to voters now, that's a waste of your time because you should be calling donors who don't even live in the state so that you can stack up millions and millions of dollars and spam everybody in the last 4 weeks of the election. And I refuse to campaign that way. Because if I did that, I would be less qualified to represent the community of which I am a part 1 year from now when I win the election than I am today. I would have spent the next year talking to all the wrong people. And don't get me wrong, I'm working hard to raise money. I understand that we've got to raise money to win elections. That's the way it goes. But that cannot come at the expense of listening to the people who we need to represent. Because when you listen to people, you understand that we've got so much more in common than separates us. We all want the same things: good health care, good housing, a livable future, the ability to spend time with our families. And if you're only ever reading that through poll results or listening to what the donors are concerned about in Washington and New York and San Francisco, you're never going to be able to honestly represent the people of the district.
So, William Lawrence, are you ready for your lightning round?
I sure am.
Okay. If you're elected to Congress, would you be in support of releasing the Epstein files?
Yes, I am in support of releasing the Epstein files.
Okay.
And I'm very curious to see what they say.
Me too. Me too. I don't care if Bill Clinton is on there. I don't give a shit who's on there. I want to see it. I want to hear it. How about Medicare for all?
Yes, I'm a supporter of Medicare for all.
Taxing the rich.
I believe we need to tax the rich, specifically the billionaires. We need to have a billionaire minimum tax Something I'm very excited about is that in California, there is a proposal that will go to the ballot next year for an absolute wealth tax on billionaires, a one-time 5% tax to fund healthcare and education. That's the sort of thing I think we also ought to be looking at the federal level.
And I don't think they'd notice it was gone.
That's right.
Ending U.S. support for foreign wars.
Absolutely. I'm the only candidate in this race that has been willing to call what is happening in Gaza a genocide, and who has been not taking any money from AIPAC, and I'm in favor of cutting off arms to Israel. More broadly, I think our priorities are all out of whack when it comes to the military-industrial complex. We're spending over $1 trillion per year on the Department of War. Actually, I agree that we renamed it the Department of War because that makes it more clear what we're talking about.
Right.
And when I meet veterans, I say, thank you for their service, and I hear about where they've served. And then I ask, do you think that $1 trillion per year is the appropriate amount for the Department of War? And they say, seems a little excessive. And by the way, I'm not getting my VA benefits. For all of that, people are getting squeezed and cheated out of their VA benefits. So our priorities are all wrong. One more thing I'll say about this is that the strikes that are happening in Iran this summer and now against Venezuela and in the Caribbean and the Pacific are utterly unconstitutional. And if you think that there's no connection between these illegal strikes we have waged around the world for the last 24 years, and now our government's ability to justify ICE raids on U.S. cities and National Guard occupations that are also completely unconstitutional, then you've got another thing coming, because the legal justification we have used for the war on terror is now being used against Americans here at home. So it really is all connected. We've got to understand that if we are a society that valorizes war above all else, then war is what we are going to get around the world and here at home.
Well, that's the next question. Would you be in support of defunding ICE?
I am, yes. Again, take it back to the war on terror. ICE was created in 2003 under the George Bush administration at the height of militaristic frenzy in the ramp up of the war on terror. And so this is not something that has been with us since George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. This is a 22-year-old agency that now is being used as an implement of terror to terrorize American citizens and immigrants in American cities. And at this point, it's very clear that it has to be defunded.
William Lawrence, I want to thank you for being with us today on For the Sake of the Argument. Do you have any final words for us before you go?
I'll just say that it's a very dark time. Obviously, we are up against some very high odds in our politics, and some very bad people like Trump and Stephen Miller have gotten way more power than I wish they had ever acquired. But I do believe that our best years are still ahead of us if we reach out for each other. This is a time for a social revival in our communities and our politics. The billionaires want nothing more than for us to be isolated from each other and sitting in our rooms on our phones. And I heard somebody say, you never hate somebody more than before you met them. And
wow,
that's the condition that we're living in right now. And it's the social media algorithms that are fostering that. And so we have got to do the work of reaching out. Yes, among other Democrats, but among independents, among non-voters, among Republicans, among people who are sick of it all, in order to chart a course forward together. You know, I'll tell you that I was on the phone yesterday making calls to people in the district, and I had a wrong number. I said, well, I might have the wrong number, but are you interested in electing Democrats to stop the president's agenda? And the lady told me to go to hell. She hung up the phone. I said, I'll see you there, as she was hanging up. I was making my next call, and she called me back. She called me back, and she said, this is a true story. She said, you know, you just called me, and I told you to go to hell, and I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't very nice of me.
Wow.
And she said, everyone gets to support, you know, who they want. And that just wasn't what and I said, well, I told you to go to hell too. I don't know if you heard it. So I guess we both owe each other an apology. And she got a good chuckle out of it, and I got a good chuckle out of it. And the truth is that people do not want to feel this way. The polarization is tearing us apart. It's making us feel bad. We're not living up to the best versions of ourselves. And I'm not preaching a message here that says we just need to reach across the aisle and we're all going to sing the national anthem or something like that. But it is to say that there are very powerful people who benefit when we are divided against each other by race, by religion, by where you're born, and by partisanship. And so for those of us who are doing the work on the ground, we have got to look for opportunities for common ground. And the strongest common ground is the fact that we are all being exploited by a very, very small number of billionaires who are literally sitting behind the president at the inauguration. That is the power behind the throne. So that is where we've got to train our attention and then do the work of being our best selves in our communities and showing up to serve people every day.
William Lawrence, thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Lori.